First Pick Podcast, picks and perspective with Chris Johnson. Palpable paradox.
Hi,
Maru,
Chris. How's it going?
good. How are you?
Good to see you. How you been?
Pretty good. It's been
All right.
it's busy, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah. How about
I
you?
saw your birthday was recently. How was that?
Oh yeah, it was really good. I just turned 44, and which
Birthday.
yeah, it's cool. Mostly what's interesting is that I haven't wanted a lot for birthdays for a long time, but I got exactly what I wanted, which was time with my mom.
Oh,
So
nice. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I love I love that I want time with my mom. Like as a long time, as a young person, I'm like, it's good to see you, mom. I gotta go. I gotta do my thing.
Yeah.
But like life is so interesting and so full in other ways that I can't wait to like see and spend time with my mom. And
That's
so
nice. I'm glad you got to. Is she nearby? Do you guys live?
she's 2.5 hours away. She lives in the
Okay.
mountains. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and so she came down and we went for a long walk up in the park, and I led us in a little meditation, a little prayer, and I don't know, just had a good time spending time with her and talking about like what it is that I'm learning through meditation and yoga and stuff like that. She takes some of it in and then translate it into Christian terms sometimes, or I translate it into Christian terms for her, and
Gotcha.
whatever, we just enjoy each other's company. So
That's cool, man. I'm glad you had a good birthday. That's awesome, especially now during these times.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like crapshoot, right? But
Yeah, for real.
I see that you've been working a lot with that Kiesel and writing new stuff, right? Like you're,
Thank you.
yeah, what's up?
Yeah.
That's cool.
No, I love it. I told you already, I recorded this new single with it. I had it all like I had my previous guitar already set up to go, and then you sent me this one and I just plugged it in and I was like the DIs alone just sound like so much more crisp and like
Oh,
uh clear. So I was like, let me just track the whole thing with this, and yeah, so now I'm mixing it, and it's gonna be the first song I recorded with it. So I'm excited. I'm really happy with it.
super cool. I'm glad to
Yeah.
have you on the team and stoked, and I can't wait for the next guitar when it comes. Like,
Yeah, I'm
it's gonna
excited
be,
for that one.
yeah, it's
It's
gonna
gonna
be
be
really
cool.
cool. Yeah. I'd love for you to tell everybody a little bit about like where you come from and like what your influences are, like how you got to be like Maru Martinez that plays guitar on Instagram. Like, what's your story?
Uh, well, I think you know already. I'm from Uruguay. I was born and raised there, and I lived there for like the first 21 years. So I'm like from there. I moved to the States 6 years ago, and yeah, so I grew up playing guitar back home in Uruguay, and I think it started because like my dad would always he would travel a lot, so like the U.S. and other places, and he would just bring a lot of like classic rock music, like Dire Straits or Pink Floyd or Fleetwood Mac, like all these bands that have like a lot of guitar in them, Carlos Santana, all that stuff. So that was like my first exposure to guitar music, and I think that's where the interest came from. And then around 14, a couple of friends from school, we just started taking some lessons, and one of them was taking bass and another one was taking guitar with me. So we kind of formed like a little band, so to speak, and just started playing together. And then, yeah, that's kind of how it started.
So you have like a lot of your early influences from like kind of classic rock era stuff, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. That was like what I remember listening to first that had a lot of guitar in it, and I think that's how I developed an interest in the instrument or in music in general. But then when I picked it up, like around the time I picked it up, I was 14, I was listening to like I don't know, other stuff like Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, Paramore, that kind of stuff. And then from guitar is where I think the interest in metal came, because it was like specifically because of the guitar. I think trying to find something that was fun to play eventually led me to like this whole metal route. So that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like as soon as you are able to like kind of understand a little bit about how the instrument feels in your hands, and like, oh, I can kind of play a couple songs or whatever. You're like, oh, it's just interesting to see where this goes, and each person you meet like exposes you to a different style of music or a different band, and then you're like, oh man, that player, how does he even make that sound, or how does she make that
Totally.
sound? So that's
Yeah,
cool.
totally. I remember like when I was taking a couple lessons from a teacher nearby, and one day he just gave me a Dream Theater live DVD. It was like live at Budokan, I think was the DVD he gave me. And up until that point, like I'd been listening to some metal like Metallica and Megadeth, but I'd never been exposed to like the shreddy progressive metal type of music. And I think I was around 16 at the time. So I remember just putting that on my laptop one night and watching John Petrucci play live for the first time. I had no idea who he was. I was like, oh my God, you can do this with this instrument. Like, I want to be like him. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So, man, that guy has inspired all of us, I think, on some level or another,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
like he's it's like it's cool to see all the, because I remember I was about 16 when I got inducted into the Dream Theater thing, and it was
Nice.
Images and Words, and it had been out for a little while, and then they came out with Awake, and when Awake came
Uh-huh.
out, I was like, okay, I think I like this band for real. It's like not just a couple of songs, like this album's like really good, and
Nice. When you started playing, was it like, were you aware of that whole like progressive shred guitar, or was it like more as well gradual?
it's interesting because yeah, I was already aware of the shred thing because I was a fan of Steve Vai before I ever played the guitar, and that's a strange thing because like normally that's not the case,
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah.
I had a good friend of mine's older brother. We used to tape trade, like cassette tape trade back in the 90s, late 80s and
Nice.
90s, right? And so like, oh, you got that Iron Maiden, man, I'll trade you this one for that one, and so I don't
That's
have
awesome.
that. You get tired of something, you're like, oh, I don't even like that album. Yeah, I'll trade you, and this older brother of my buddy Scott Grundy's older brother Joey, he was like, I had the one Iron Maiden tape that he didn't have. He had every tape at that time, up until that point or whatever, and I had Somewhere in Time, and that was like the last one to complete his collection. He's like, hey, I've got this tape that I don't really listen to a lot, but it's really good. I just don't listen to it a lot. It's like, but he's like maybe the best guitar player on the planet. His name's Steve Vai. And like I was like, well, if it's the best, then like, yeah, I guess I'll trade you, whatever, like it's better than Jimi Hendrix, and he's like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, better than Jimi Hendrix. So I was like, okay. So it was kind of interesting, and I used to listen to that like going to bed at night and just dreaming about like
Wow.
how he would make those sounds. Like it seemed like he made the guitar extra otherworldly,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. So expressive. Yeah.
yeah, that was maybe the thing that I think really caught my ear was like, wow, it's almost like a vocal quality, that he can
Hmm.
express himself in that way with the whammy and all the different effects. And
Yeah.
so I
It's so
kind of knew, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how like yeah, people are exposed to different types of music like as they pick up an instrument. Because I feel like for me, guitar, at first I just thought it was a cool instrument to play and it sounded cool, but then I got into this whole like rabbit hole of wow, you can really like get into this instrument and be, you know, invest yourself in it and then like reach like like virtuoso levels like Petrucci and Vi. Like that's possible. It's crazy.
Right. And
Yeah.
for me, it was like I'd already known of Van Halen. So Eddie Van Halen, like
Mm.
I knew that he was badass. But like again, I wasn't into guitar. But then Vi, and then it was like by the time I actually picked the guitar up, I was like, oh, Nirvana and Pearl Jam were cool, and that's what I was like
Nice.
more in.
Yeah.
And that was easier to try to play anyway, to
All
try
right.
to
Yeah.
rip a couple licks off of for your favorite Nirvana tune or whatever. And so I spent time messing with that, but. Yeah, I mean nowadays it's like there's just you get every type of guitar player that you could ever imagine is available
Yeah.
to you on your phone, at a
It's insane.
you're like, whoa.
Yeah. So
So
many like great guitar players from just like my generation that in so different like styles too. It's kind of interesting seeing that because like I feel like my generation grew up with YouTube and when having all these access to like I would watch like Petrucci's Rock Discipline on YouTube and like you know what I mean? Like we had
dude,
access to all these like all of our favorite players would put out like lessons online or free lessons on YouTube. So it's interesting to see how like the people who grew up in my generation have like evolved with guitar. And there's
mm.
so many incredible players. It's kind of crazy.
It's funny, the Rock Discipline video. So
Yeah.
me and my buddy Ryan would go to Guitar Center, even before Guitar Center was really a thing. We'd see that like advertised in the guitar magazines, and then like occasionally you'd go to a local music store that would have it in stock, but it was like 30 or 40 bucks for the VHS
Oh,
tapes, right? For like two
oh man,
VHS CDs.
VHS.
So
Yeah.
like we were just like, oh, I'm just here to buy picks and strings. I can't afford to buy that stupid video, you know. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
cool, but like, and then all these years later, I don't even remember who. I think it was Ryan, my buddy. One of us bought it, you know, finally, and like maybe it was down to $30 or something, and we bought it, and then we're like, wow, there's like a bunch of legitimately cool. Obviously, I mean, of course, there's a bunch of cool stuff in there, but like, I always thought sometimes I cringe at buying lessons from people because I'm like, am I gonna understand it? I feel like a dummy. Like, will I,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
know what
like,
you
will I,
mean.
will I be able to
Yeah.
comprehend or get
Will I
anything?
even use this? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I'll
feel
just buy it, put it on my shelf, and be like, "Yeah, I got that Marty Friedman thing," and no, I don't really know how to play any of it, but I got it. You know, it's
Yeah, it's there.
yeah,
That's
which
cool.
has been the case a few times for me. So
Yeah. I actually have a promise that I've yet to like deliver on, which I got the Rock Discipline book, but it wasn't the original one. It was a photocopy because they didn't sell it in Uruguay. There was no distributors for that book. So unless I would get it shipped from overseas, which at 14, like I don't know how I was gonna do that with like whose money, you know?
yeah,
So I just had like the entire book like scanned basically, and I always told myself like once I move, if I ever go to the States or if I ever go somewhere that has this book, I'm gonna buy the actual copy, and I've yet to do it, so it's on my bucket list. I have to just go get it.
that's cool. That's good. That's good. And have you worked through a lot of the exercises and stuff in there?
Yeah, I never finished it, but yeah, I remember just being obsessed with it. Like I would find the YouTube clip that went with the exercise. Like I remember watching Petrucci's like whole how to like stretch and like, you know, take care of
Yeah,
like your wrists, and then there was one exercise that I remember practicing for like subdivisions. So it was like a very basic like scale exercise that basically taught you like, you know, how to count eighth notes, 16th notes, very basic stuff, but that at the time I didn't know how to do. So I didn't remember like learning a lot from that book for sure.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
And what would you say that maybe Petrucci is one of the primary inspirations to get you into the shreddier stuff, you think, and then you grew from
I
there?
think
Or-
so. Yeah, I think that he was the first exposure to like progressive metal shred guitar I had, and then it kind of evolved from there. I kind of gave up on trying to play like him like very early on. So
Well, it's good because
like
you have
it's
your own thing now, like, and that's great.
thank you.
Do you remember what the first couple of guitar picks were that you know start when you started using and starting to like take lessons and stuff? Do you remember what those were? And
I think I kind of used whatever was available at the time, but I remember using a lot of the Fender medium picks and also like the Dunlop, like the purple ones. You know,
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know exactly
the
like the name.
Tortex, or
Yeah.
were they glossy?
No, I think they were the Tortex,
Okay,
like
yeah,
the matte purple ones. I forget what like
it's
the specs were.
1.14
Okay.
Tortex standard probably.
Yeah, I think it was those. So I think I used Fender mediums and Tortex, and then because of John Petrucci, I then picked up Jazz threes, and then that's all I've been using for the past 10 years. So yeah, there he goes again, influencing.
And now you're still at Jazz 3.
Yeah, I have them
Which
here. I
ones?
used the well, first I started with the like the red ones, the like, classic ones, right?
Sure, yeah.
Or the standard ones, and then I went with the Altex. So these are mainly the two that I use all the
Okay.
time.
So
Yeah,
nylon
just
and
kinda-
Ultex. Yeah.
Yeah, I like these a lot, and I've been meaning to try the XLs. So what do you think of those? Are they like
Yeah, I got onto the Jazz 3s for a long while actually. I was on Tortex Green for the whole first part of my like playing or just whatever was around, you know, like but like Tortex Green was super important, but then the Jazz 3 really makes you be more precise and learn like how to work around the strings, right? Because you're not there's no give in these picks really, you know, and
right?
the Jazz 3 XL I was into for a while. I still kind of prefer that size. I'm more into the flow shapes these days.
Okay. I
So
haven't tried those yet.
you should try the John Petrucci
Yeah.
flow. That might be the one
Okay.
to start with, actually. It's a
Cool.
2 millimeter. It's a wider like geometry. So this is a Tortex flow here. You can see
Oh,
that
nice.
it doesn't kind of it doesn't go down
Yeah,
as sharp as a Jazz 3. Has a little bit wider
that's
ascent
cool.
to the tip, but the tip is essentially it's pretty close to being the same. And I love thick picks, man. I love the full. I have this Flow 420. Like this is a 4.2.
Whoa, that's
Hard to
cool.
see.
Yeah, that looks pretty thick. Yeah. Oh, wow.
But it has nice indented grip and everything on it. It's really sweet.
Nice.
But ultimately, I always return back to like a 73 or an 88 Tortex
Yeah.
or Ultex Flow. That's really where I've been at because I like enough flex and
Right.
honestly, I was super on like thicker picks for a good while, and then Misha Mansour came by and did the podcast in LA, and he's like, oh, I don't play anything but these, the 60s. And
Oh, interesting.
I'm like, oh man. And then but they're so pliable, they're so
Oh,
malleable that
yeah, that's very flexible.
you really have to kind of adjust the thing. But there's certain like magic to the really thin pick if you can
I
if
might
you can
have to
harness it.
try it. Yeah, I actually got the flows recommended recently by someone, so I feel like now, I have no excuse. I've been with the same picks for like 8 years, so I feel like it wouldn't hurt to like venture out and try something else at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't nothing to fix really. But like, it's one of those little things that you can play with, and you can affordably like purchase like picks
Right.
around the world, from different people. I mean, I also have, I keep a collection of
Whoa,
like different
that's nice.
picks that are all in
Wow,
this like,
that's a pick right there. That's like so thick.
yeah, like with this one.
It looks like a yeah.
Yeah, it's like a 11 or
Wow.
a 12. It's made by Huffschmid.
Whoa, that's next level.
Check out that tip. So
Yeah.
I keep these around. I mean, I got one. This one's like a
Ooh.
33 million year old fossilized chrysanthemum.
No way,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, and it's I believe it's done by Stone Age picks, and
Oh, okay, that's so cool.
but there's I have a ton of these things that like this big ass like it looks like a
Ooh.
coin basically. It feels
Yeah.
super heavy in the hand.
Is that like metal?
Yeah, I think it
Oh wow.
might be brass, and that's not brass. It might be, maybe it is brass. I don't know, to be honest.
That
I,
looks cool.
I I've just been ever since I started this podcast, and before the podcast, I was collecting all these weird picks because I just find it interesting. Like I had these ones, this one, Ricky Leplectier from France. Um,
Whoa, that's cool.
has a bit of like a kind of a steampunk vibe.
That's a really nice design. Yeah.
Little gears inside there, and each one of them is different. And that's metal on the side, so it's like a polycarbonate tip, but metal on the side, so you
Wow.
can flip the pick and slide on the strings if you want. There's a player named Charlie Sahona that has like a signature pick like this from I think he's in France maybe too, maybe
That's
Spain.
awesome.
But he has a couple videos of him doing really wicked stuff, and then pew 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 like doing
That's
these like
cool.
slides or like
Oh
oh,
man.
I don't know if I'm gonna do exactly that, but that's really cool. I'm gonna buy that pick. So I just keep
I
collecting.
feel like yeah, when like yeah, I've been with the same pick for so long that now you show me all this stuff and I feel like I'm just stuck in time. Like, wow, this is how much they've evolved in all this time. That's wild.
Well, and it's a reasonably, I mean, it's something that you can like start learning how to do making picks, right? So like if you
Yeah,
don't, even if you're not a great player, but you're like just like handy or crafty, you might like I'm
that's
gonna
true.
start making picks and see if I can make stuff that people like and sell them.
That's
And so
awesome.
there's hundreds, probably thousands of like small pick makers at this point, around the world. A few of them making really good stuff. I will say if you wanted to check out something really interesting, there's a company. I don't have them in here. They're probably in another box somewhere. But BHL Industries or
Okay.
BHL, they make a pick called the Hodor. They make a bunch
Oh,
of cool
like the
picks.
Game of Thrones character.
Yeah, the Hodor is fast. It's thick and fast,
Nice.
and it's just ever so slightly. You can flip it a couple times, and you'll notice you're like, oh, it feels right this way because it's got a slight little indent for your finger underneath and a opposite indent for your thumb on top.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's very cool. It's almost too fast. You have to like slow down everything for a minute and like decide that you're gonna like take a deep breath, because otherwise it just kind of, you're like, your left hand can't, at least that's my
Oh
experience.
wow,
My left hand couldn't keep up. It's quite
that
as
sounds pretty cool. Might
yeah, it
have
was
to
cool.
try it out.
Very
Nice.
cool. But those are like sometimes $35-$40 picks.
Oh wow, yeah. I was gonna
So
say like the closest I when you said like get crafty and make your own picks. I think the closest I ever got to that was back when there were phone cards, like for prepaid phones. I feel like no, I'm not the only one who's done this, but like you could trace the shape of a already existing
oh
pick
yeah.
and then just cut the card. That's the closest I ever gotten to making my own picks.
And now they
Way
sell
back when.
kits, right? You can get kits where you punch them out. You can punch pick shapes out of like old credit cards or pieces of
I saw
plastic.
that. Yeah, I was like, I wish I had that when I was like 15.
They're a little rough. If you take it and then you like rub it on some sandpaper or like a carpet or something to soften the edges, you could make it work though.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's picks, man. I love picks. They're super fun. But the the interesting thing about all that, just like each player and everything, is that they're all so unique. And like
Yeah.
I think the fun of it is having them sitting here while I'm writing, and every once in a while I'll just pick something else up and just try and emote with that particular thing and the way that one feels in the hand, and it just changes
Yeah.
what you play a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try the flows and see how that feels because
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about them now and I have to like try something else. So yeah.
Yeah. They come highly recommended from Andy James and John Petrucci, and even James Hetfield is using them now too.
Oh wow,
And
nice.
he's got his own thing there. But who are
That's
you?
awesome.
What are you listening to these days? Are you like, who are your big influences in the more later years?
Uh, Now it's like a lot all over the place as far as listening to. I still like to play a lot of metal, but for listening, I anything that sounds good. Not just metal. Do you know the band Glass Animals?
I feel like I should. I don't know.
Yeah, they're like pop, electronic pop kind of band. They're from the UK, and that's a band that I've been listening to a lot. Like I really like their writing. It's just a very unique sounding band, and the guy does all the production and all that, so that's always very cool. I also checked out the band you told me that I can never say the name. Krombing?
Oh yeah, Krungben.
Krombing. Yeah,
Krungben.
that was cool too. Like I would say that's not normally what I would like gravitate towards, but I enjoyed it a lot. I was listening to it on my way back from work the other day, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. It brought me some like early Fleetwood Mac vibes in some
Oh
songs.
yeah.
Yeah.
They've got a classic sound, like the sound of the drums and the way the drums and the bass
The
go
bass lines were
together.
awesome. Yeah.
Oh,
So good.
they've curated the tones correctly,
Yeah.
and got
True.
like a warm, inviting sound already. And then there's something about them, like they're just so different. And even though they're playing a genre that is kind of like it's well treaded, that path,
Right.
as far as
Yeah.
like the kind of the mixture of soul and funk and kind of like surf guitar tones, even though the guitar
Yeah.
isn't necessarily a surf sound,
Hmm.
but the way they put it together, when they come together to do it, there's some magic there.
It works. Yeah, no, it works really well. I liked it a lot. So yeah, I've been listening to Glass Animals, still a lot of metal. Like I like modern metal a lot. I'm sure you've heard of the band Spirit Box that's
Yep.
come out like recently, so I've been listening to them a lot. But yeah, I'm still definitely a big metal listener, but over the years, like I listen to the like Spotify top hits all the time. Like I like pop music a lot, so yeah, it's everywhere.
Same. I'm all over the map, but I don't listen as much metal these days. But when it's good, it's good.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
I'm curious though, like what you're writing. I've seen little tidbits here and there of a lot of the stuff that you're like writing, but haven't released this new set of material. And I mean, the last bit, I guess it was I don't know, the last album that you put out
Yeah.
had some vocals on it. And
Yeah, one song had vocals in it, yeah.
is the new stuff going to have vocals? Is it going to be heavier or similar, or what should we expect from the new album?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of releasing instrumental versions as like the single in singles format, and then for the EP, I do want to have vocals on ideally all of the songs. It's weird because like the only reason I make instrumental music is because I can't sing or like I don't feel comfortable singing and playing guitar at the same time. But I love music with vocals. Like I always like instrumental music too, but I always gravitate to music that has vocals in it. So I always wanted that for my music too. So I'm planning on getting different vocalists for each song. So that's gonna be fun.
Oh,
Right
that's
now I'm
cool.
working on that. Yeah, right now I'm working on the instrumental versions of it. So once that's done, I plan on releasing them. But I do want to have like vocalists on, hopefully every song. I think that would be cool.
That was you singing on that one track, though, right? On the last
No, that
album?
was a friend of mine from
Oh,
Chicago. I wish that was me. She
oh,
sounds really good.
oh. I was listening, going, okay, this must be Maru. I didn't even know. Okay, okay, well,
Yeah,
that's
no,
cool.
she's my good friend Bernie from she plays in a band called Bernie and the Wolf, and I used to live in Chicago for 5 years, so that's how we met, just playing locally. And yeah, she just did vocals for that one song, and hearing that song going from like instrumental when I wrote it and made it to something with vocals was what kind of like finally convinced me that I should try and have vocals on like most of my songs. So that's my plan moving forward.
Cool. That'll be interesting. So it's gonna be like Maru and Friends a little bit. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Interesting. The what's interesting is that you have kind of like an indie vibe at times with like an indie like prog math rock vibe that also you marry with the more metal vibe, and sometimes it's like you kind of stay in that mellower vibe for, and it's still kind of technical at times, right? You're like doing this thing, but you're establishing a lot more melodic themes and whatnot, and then this other tunes, I'm like, whoa, dude, this is also Maru. This is so heavy. It's so cool.
Yeah, the first EP was just strictly all like very math rocky, like you were saying, proggy, clean guitar noodling is basically what it was. But this second one, I'm planning on having more like heavy, a little bit heavier. Like there's the new single I tracked with the Theos is basically just a metal song. It's like mostly all distorted guitars. Anoop, my husband, wrote the drums, so it's just a metal song.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna start doing a little bit more of that. I think the reason why I didn't do it sooner is because I was always so intimidating by the recording process for metal. You know, like your drums have to be on point, your guitars have to distorted guitars. It's so hard to nail the tone for and get a mix for. So now finally, after playing metal for so long, I feel like, okay, I'm gonna take a stab at actually producing a metal song. So we'll see how it goes.
Cool. No, I understand that challenge.
Yeah.
And it's nowadays it seems like it's easier and easier. Just because there's so many great plugins. You know, I rock a fractal, so like there's a lot of tones in there that kind of already feel, mix worthy. I don't mess with them too much. I'm not one to tweak into there. I'm just like I search until I find something and maybe,
I'm the same way. Yeah.
yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on the tone. I want to try to like record the thing,
Yeah,
or
totally.
write.
For your bands in the past, have they been like metal bands or have you been more in like other genres as well?
Yeah, mostly metal. I mean, the bands, I had one band here solid with my brother when I was in my early 20s, and it was just kind of like a sludge doom band with his girlfriend at the time, like screaming poetry. Like we were kind of like almost like an art rock band, like
Nice.
because she hated being on stage, and she couldn't remember any. She's like very shy, so she couldn't like actually like own the stage. She would walk up and she'd have her poetry in her hand, like she's shaking, like not wanting to be on stage. But she did a great job. She would scream really good. So
Nice.
we went kind of DIY punk rock type of doom, slightly metalish thing for a few years, and then I did a band in Seattle, 2 different incarnations.
That's
kind
cool.
of heavy, trying to be prog-ish tech thing. I don't know. We liked Meshuggah and Pantera and Testament and Candiria, like progressive ideas, but with thrash involved. And
Right, yeah.
So we made a couple of CDs doing that, and toured a little bit, and then realized how incredibly tough it is to
Right.
be like, a good band. Like, it's okay, if you can get a band together, like, wow, that's a big feat. But like actually being a really well rehearsed band, you have to have the right
Oh
people, right?
man.
Oh
I
man.
I learned that lesson too in Chicago when I had my band there. I love those guys. They're still my closest friends, even though we kind of all drifted into different states. We kind of all moved out at the same time. But yeah, we were a progressive metal band. We wrote really complex music, but when it came to the live performance, all of us had day jobs, or we were in school and had day jobs. So I remember just like trying to fit a practice in between 5 people, late on a Monday night, the only day we could all get together, and then try to go play a show. Oh man, we were like, yeah, that's how when I learned, like, okay, if we're gonna write this type of music, we have to be on it when it comes to practice, like our gear, like our tone. And that's how I learned that lesson. So I feel you on that.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. I
Yeah.
remember for us, we had a couple of early shows that were okay, and then we quickly I think we had a show where we had only practiced once or twice before we played the show, and it was like not
Oh
good.
man, it was the
It
same
was
for us. Yeah.
so
It
bad.
was,
And then so we got together and we're talking. We're like, well, I guess we got to like we should practice every night. Like, so we for about a year in the early days. I think it was like maybe 2002 or 2003 or whatever. We were practicing like Monday through Friday every night.
wow.
After work, we get off our shitty jobs, whatever our shitty jobs. We're working at grocery stores, and
Yeah.
most of us working at grocery stores or delivering pizza or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And because our jobs and weren't that great. It wasn't something that we just like we couldn't think about anything else anyway. We all wanted to be
Right.
in the band and write music and do that stuff. So um, we were able to spend that time doing it. Then as
That's
people
good.
got better jobs, started to have careers and stuff like that, they're like, ah, well, like, you know,
That's when it gets tricky. Yeah.
or have
Because then you're
families.
invested in your other, yeah, job for sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of what happened for me. It was just getting the opportunity to do work in artist relations, and as the band wasn't able to go and do the tour that we were planning on doing, and I was like, all right, well, I'm putting all my energy over here because it's like consistent.
Yeah.
Whereas the band, like, we'll practice for 2 years, write a thing, and release a record, and then somebody leaves. You're like, okay,
Right.
we're not going on tour, or like not,
It's
so
so difficult. Yeah. That's that's part of why I wanted to like kind of just do my own thing as well, because I mean, as much as I love being in a band, and that's always still going to be like the dream for me, like being in a band and tour with that band and like be consistent with that band is so difficult. Like, we when we were in the band in Chicago, it's like at the end of the day you're managing like 5 people's schedules, and 5 people's lives have to come together, and like we have to all be on the same page. So even with the best intentions, and the best people, it's still very difficult. So
it's
yeah.
true. My girlfriend at the time, she was like, you and I are living together, but you have 4 boyfriends that you're constantly
Right. Pretty
having
much. Yeah.
to like navigate their drama,
Right.
their can and can't do's around the band, like schedule
It's like being
conflicts.
married to 4 people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally that thing.
Yeah.
And so, which in a way, like if you're able to make a band work, like I see this in bands that have been together a long time, they end up having to work through really tough things in life because everybody goes through tough things in life. And so you're parallel to them. And in a strange way, it's really great work, right? In the same way that like a really good relationship is great work, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of mirroring. You get to see how you react in relationship and close quarters for over a
Yeah.
long period of time. You're like, oh man, so I can see your cycle, your thing that you come back through all the time is very, very clear to me now, and you can see a lot of mine. And so we represent that and say, hey, look, you're doing that thing again. Can we not
Right.
do that as much? And you have to work through people's neurosis and like their quirks.
Totally. Yeah, I have so much respect for bands that have been together for a long time and are making it work. Like I have
Hmm.
so much respect for that because it's so difficult. So, Yeah.
Same.
That's
Yeah.
that's why I like to collaborate with so many people, like with drummers or vocalists, because it still fulfills that part of musical collaboration, even though it's under like a solo project. At least there's still that, you know. So, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
one thing entirely to have a band.
Right. Well, because most bands are kind of democratically dispersed, right? We're like, oh, we're coming together to make. We all agree that we want to make basically this kind of music through saying, okay, we all like these bands or we all like this vibe or energy. And that's the interesting part too, is to find people that are actually on point or on board with your vision or in parallel to your thing. Whereas when it's your project, it's great because you can go, oh, hey, you don't necessarily even have to like my project
Right.
for more than this one tune. You just think this one tune is okay. Put
Yeah,
your
exactly.
thing on it and then send it back to me and we're good.
Yeah, I
So
know. It's so nice.
yeah, you can get away with that instead of always like third song in like, oh, this song feels like it's going in a different direction than all the other songs. And
Yeah.
it's like, man, I don't want to have to answer to you. Like, just this is how you do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
man.
good side
I
of
miss
it.
those days, but yeah, it was frustrating. I remember getting into like not arguments, but just over petty stuff like, no, we shouldn't use triplets in this solo. No, no, you has to be have like more of this feel. And I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, it was
Yeah,
fun though.
it was really fun. I mean, and even I know a lot of ways. I think doing the band thing sets you up. Especially, it sounds like you might have been, part of the leadership of your band or whatever too, to like, or as far as the writing is concerned or whatever. But if everybody's equal parts, that's cool. My band was equal parts on the writing part for sure, but it was predominantly like me and the other guitar player that would write the
Right in the park.
skeletons, and then we'd kind of like hash out the transitions and everything. But yeah, you learn so much about it. For me, it kind of primed me learning how to book shows and how to
Yeah.
do all that. Kind of led right up to me working in artist relations. I was like, oh wow, my life is strangely like linear right here. Like that
Right.
literally like helped me be able to do this. Interesting. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, you learn like the business aspect of it because you're doing your own booking. Like you said, you have to learn how to reach out to a venue and put a lineup together for like a date. And yeah, that
Yeah.
all translates to the business part of it for sure.
And get paid, hopefully.
Yeah,
I mean,
hopefully.
Hail Mary, like never really know. I mean, like
Yeah.
especially in the early days when nobody knows you, you're just like, what?
Oh man, I remember just being happy. There's this band in this venue in Chicago called Reggie's Rock Club. It's one of like the iconic like smaller venues in Chicago that every metal band that comes through plays. So we would just love playing there just because they would give us food tickets, and that was for us was like like man, we made it. We're getting like drink tickets and like a meal. We're good. We love Reggie's.
That's awesome. I remember that too. There was a couple of places in Seattle and Portland that they would treat us really well. You have like your own little green room and you'd get free drinks and beer and everything. We're just like, this is basically it, right? Like
Yeah, this is the life.
that's what we signed up for. We just need the bus to pick us up and take us to the next thing now. If we can figure
Right.
that out.
Yeah.
And it's such a leap. It's such a leap from dreaming about that to actually getting to that place. And that was the thing where I started really quickly realizing I was like, oh wow, the thing was we go on a road and come down to California and book all these shows with all these other Bay Area bands. And man, we were like mid 20s, mid to late 20s when we were doing most of this. And these younger bands that were like 17, 18, 19 up to 21 were just so much better than us. I mean, like just not, I mean, it's stylistic it's up to interpretation or whatever. But I mean,
Right.
in general, their technicality and like they just had like more going on. And I was just like, okay, so if they're not signed and like touring, like then we
Yeah.
should probably work harder. Like,
Oh man, I remember that feeling, like having that same feeling watching so many bands that we played with for sure. Or like we would open for metal bands that were on tour, and I would just look at them and be like, man, we have so much work to do. And I would get up on stage and we were not well rehearsed, so I would feel so bad about like, man, if I'm in the progressive metal like world, I have to like step my game up and yeah. So that's how I learned that lesson.
yeah. Well, so hey, are your family still back in Uruguay or what?
My parents are, yeah.
Yeah.
My brother immigrated to the U.S. before I did, so he lives in Chicago. He's been in the States for 10 years now. So he came here before I did. I kind of followed in his footsteps to be closer to him and his
Mm-hmm.
family. I have a niece, and they all live in Chicago, so I was looking for places to go to school, and we had visited Chicago with my parents from Uruguay, so I was like, let me try and apply to schools here so I can be close to him, and that's kind of how I moved
Mm.
to the States. But yeah,
So
my parents are back home.
they come and visit though when they
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, they were here early. Well, my mom was here in February and my dad was here in December, so that was the last time I saw them before, my mom left like
Oh,
2 weeks before the pandemic like broke out. So I
wow.
was lucky in that regard that she came right before it, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's tough to be that big of a distance and then have so much uncertainty in between everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. Now, like, tickets are the cheapest they've been from the US to Uruguay. I'm like, normally they're $1,500 and now they've been going for like 600. So
Mm.
I've been trying to like book something for me to go, but at the same time, I'm like so uncertain about traveling in a plane and like, you don't know if you're gonna have issues getting in the country or out of the country. So it sucks because it's so cheap and affordable right now, but at the same time, like, I don't feel comfortable at all traveling. So.
Yeah, it's really strange. I have some friends that are just like taking the opportunity to bail and go and do that and like get out and travel. Like a few friends are like, "Ah, it's wintertime. We always go to like the Bahamas or go to Maui or
Yeah.
something," and they just go like because you can go right now still. Like it's not totally shut down, but uh, like there's a calculated risk involved in all the things like right now, unfortunately. So just have to
Yeah, for
see.
sure.
Hopefully the vaccine makes a dent
Oh
in
yeah.
this whole thing and we're able to feel more confident about restoring some normalities.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope I don't know, man. I hope by at least the end of 2021 we're like somewhat back to normal.
Yeah, they're saying mid to late 21 might be when we start to see some live shows potentially
Yeah,
you
that'd be
know
awesome. I was bummed. Like 2021 was gonna be the first year I went to Nam. Like I've never been to Nam
oh
for
really
some reason or another. Mostly money, to be honest. Because I was like a student for so long and I could never like just book a flight to LA and a hotel and all that. So 2021 was the first year I was like, okay, I saved up for this. It's gonna be cool. And now, bam, there's no Nam. So that sucks.
and this is the first year I haven't gone in like 15 years or something
Wow.
and it's like but it's different when you're working it when you go to visit and you
Right.
do it you're on like the first time I went like in 2004 was super fun because I wasn't working that and I was just running around and in the first few times you're like this is candy store and
All
I
right.
am
Yeah.
kid and I will touch and play with all the candy. I will go and try to see all of it and it's 10,000 plus exhibits on the main floor and then you got the
Right.
basement and and you have the upstairs and then there's like satellite spots in the other motel or the hotels around and the parties afterwards, some of them are good, some of them are just trash, but
Now you're an AM veteran. You're like, I'm over
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I'm strangely like it's weird though, but it's like even the Nam veterans. It's funny because I feel it. I felt it. I've been had this like visceral thing that for the time of year I'm like I should be. I'm not. I should be. I'm not. But like I keep thinking that I should be like preparing for something bigger, and like be more stressed out. But I don't have to be. But the body like still thinks it should be, and
Right.
it's interesting. I think by the time you get to Christmas or just past Christmas, like the body has fully reset and it's like, okay, we can go to Nam now. But all year long, I'm like, no way, I don't really want to go to Nam. I don't
It
really want to
takes
go
a
to Nam.
full year of recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I finally get past Christmas or into past New Year. And I'm like, all right. I mean, I want to see all those people. I want to see I
Right.
genuinely, I've missed them and now I want to see them. But this year, not so much. So we'll see.
Right. I'm curious from like your perspective because you've been going every year for 15 years. Like, how has it changed from like the first NAM to now? Because I feel
Mm.
like the music industry has just changed so much, and for you to be seeing that on a yearly like basis.
It's a good question. I feel like it had kind of changed quite a bit by the time I even got there. So like and this is interesting because in the first couple of years, and I was around a lot of older guys that had been doing it for 20 and 30 years already at that point, right?
Wow.
And like salespeople, and so you hear all this kind of like war stories and like, oh, back in my day we didn't do that stuff, okay, okay. But because a lot of what the show used to mostly be about was writing sales. So you would set up your booth as a manufacturer, and you'd have all these salespeople from all around the world show up, and then you'd make these appointments in the back rooms to show off the dog and pony show. Like, hey, this is the new thing. How many thousands would you like? I'll write you up for 6,000, and people are like, oh, well, I'm going to go and see the other competitors and I'll be back. Well, hey, let's do, they try to strike deals and lock people in, retailers and dealers into the new products so that they can then, because oftentimes what would happen is you show up to NAMM with prototypes or stuff that's almost kind of ready, or, you would kind of tease things, and knowing that you could have them to market within 3 to 6 months post the show. And so you could gauge for the year a certain amount of sales based on how NAMM went, like in the response to the product. And sometimes products would get brought and nobody gave any shits about anything. And you're like, okay, we're not putting that out.
Kind of like a test, like test the waters before you commit to like a product.
Yeah, you probably see it more so, I think, in car shows, like where they go, oh, this is the concept car, everybody. And everybody loses their shit. You get a bunch of press about the concept car of the new, the new sports car, or the new this or that. And then by the time that car actually comes out, it looks a little bit tamer than the concept was usually,
Okay.
right? And you're kind of like, oh, we refined it based on market research, based on the response and the price point that people are willing to pay, blah, 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 all those things. So I think it kind of used to be more so that. It still kind of is and has been that. There's remnants of that, but more so it's shifted into just a hang, because we don't write as much business as we used to, right? Like, and so it became like even in the time that I've been there, that in the decade that I've been going to NAMM, I feel like we were doing more business in the early days, and then now in the later years, it's more like, okay, well, let's just make the booth way smaller, because we would normally have these bigger and bigger and bigger booths the further you go back in history, because you're trying to have all the product there, and you're having.
Because that's the only way people could like see it, right?
Right.
Without the internet, yeah.
Yeah, and then as people got more savvy and we got better with releasing video and YouTube and all this stuff, then you have less to worry about. You just bring the key items, because you're not going to sell a lot anyway. You don't bring all the whole line of products, because it costs you all this money to ship. If the company doesn't live in the LA area, you're shipping everything in. So people that are coming from other countries, from Germany and from the other side of the United States or anywhere, have to have a big bill just to show up.
That makes sense.
Set up. So really it's about like, can I get enough press? Really, like it becomes like, can I get the attention of enough artists that might be interested in helping promote? And can I get the daily news and the different people that run blogs and YouTube channels to come by and interview me, and then spread the word about my product while I'm here? So hopefully that's worth it, and that turns into subsequent sales throughout the year. And that's where the main thing I see is different. And then myself personally, of course, in the beginning, you party, okay? Usually what happens is you go like, NAMM, oh my God. And it's like, you look at the schedule and you're like, there's so many overlapping parties. Like, we're going to go to the Schechter party, then we're going to go to the Jackson thing, then Scher's doing a thing over here. And then Diodario's got, oh my God, Diodario's got that guy playing. Are you kidding me? We have to make it to that. And then, oh wait, House of Blues has Marty Friedman. Like, we're going, so you do all this stuff, and then you try to stay out after you've been on the floor all day long, standing around, shaking hands, probably getting sick. Like everybody gets sick at NAMM.
I've heard of the infamous NAMMthrax.
Yes, exactly, the NAMMthrax.
Yeah.
And so if the first few years, especially when you work, you kind of like blow off steam more and you drink more or whatever, party, stay up way too late at the Hilton, running from one stupid party to another stupid party. And then a couple of years goes by, at least for me, and I was like, I I don't want to feel like that, and I don't want to like be trashed on the floor on Saturday and Sunday. So I started making a pact with myself that I wouldn't drink anything until I'd have one or two drinks Saturday night, the last night, but I would
Right.
get up early and do yoga and stuff, and I that was a game changer. I just felt so much better. I did better
Right.
business. I wasn't as aggro from all the craziness. So, when
Yeah.
it comes back, I hope that you get your chance for a good NAM
Yeah.
show.
That'd be awesome.
The
Look forward
Nashville
to it.
one's cool too, if you ever get a chance to go to Nashville.
Oh yeah, that's in the summertime, right?
Yeah, it's way, way, way smaller, but Nashville's super cute.
Yeah, I've
Despite
never been, but it sounds really nice.
it's usually super hot at that time, like
Ah.
way, way hotter than you can believe. Like it feels like you might die, but you stay in mostly in the air conditioning and then go out at night, and that there's a lot of
Yeah.
music in and around that's not just um, not just like the country music and stuff, but
Yeah, I
um,
always associated Nashville with country, but I know that's probably like a bad stereotype.
well, it's still very much that, but it's also very hip now too. There's like
Okay.
Nashville's got its own, like East Nashville, like there's very cool hip eateries and like stuff that you would find in like Portland or East or West Coast, like West Coast and Northwest a lot. Like there's a certain like tinge. It's kind of like Austin, Texas is super hip too. And they've got a lot
Gotcha.
of cool stuff there. You wouldn't Texas isn't like necessarily hip, but
But just
Austin
that
is hip
city. Right,
and
yeah.
progressive, and so Nashville's got its progressive kind of tinge too, and there's lots of other music going on there too.
That's
So
cool. It's always like even after, I've been in the US for 6 years, but it still blows my mind that there's so much culture just that changes from city to city and also regions like
mm,
East Coast, Midwest, like West Coast. Because as a like someone from overseas, like I always saw as the US, like it's just is the US, it's a country, right? But then you come here and you're like, no, but there's like all these like different states and cities and like cultures within the US. It just blows my mind that there's still so many cities I haven't like visited or experienced. So it's always interesting to hear what like how people describe certain places. Yeah, it's cool.
yeah, like little. They're almost like little countries next to each other in a way. It's like how
Right.
Europe has all these little smaller countries that are close by and they influence each other, cross pollinate, but they have their own little tight knit communities. Like New Orleans is another one. New Orleans
Yeah, I've heard of it.
is
Yeah,
incredible. Total. It's its own thing down there though. Like you go down there and like
that's what
there's a
I
whole
heard.
different set of kind of rules or customs and stuff, and the way the music and the way the bands and the musicians listen to each other is different, and
That's cool.
it's just that's that particular thing. But in Cal, and I think it's interesting. Just I being predominantly a West Coast kid, like, and I growing up in Northern California, bro, dude, saying hella and all this stuff, and then I finally went and started going to New York for work, New York and the East Coast, and I was like making friends out there and starting to see the like, whoa, like people were really really forward on the East Coast, like just like
Ah,
to the point, like
right.
let's get it done. And whereas like East or West Coast is more like, hey man, it's cool, like
Like
we'll
more
get
laid
there
back.
a little bit, it's like
Okay, cool.
I kind of jokingly, I mean obviously there's no one size fits all, but West Coast is a little more passive aggressive and East Coast is a little more assertive aggressive. It's
Okay.
like in the way they get things done. Like, but both West Coast has its own assertive or aggressive, and East Coast has its a little passive aggressive thing that does too. But uh,
Right. I think my first exposure with that, with seeing the different cultures within the U.S., like for regions, was living in the Midwest, like in Illinois, in Chicago, for example, and then moving to the East Coast. Because I knew people talked about this stuff, like how there's different, like, yeah, like people are different in different regions, and you have the Midwest. What do they call it? Like people in the Midwest are really nice, or like you know what I mean?
yeah,
And that is true. Like I experienced that, you know, coming to the East Coast from like Chicago was like, wow, people are more like direct here. I work in Northern Virginia. I teach there, so it was like a total culture shock for a little bit there. It was like,
mm,
yeah, people are different. It's like there's a different vibe. I don't know.
Well, that's part of what, when you get to go to the South a little bit, if you do like Texas, yeah, Texas is similar. Texas and Tennessee, they there's that kind of bless your heart kind of like vibe, like real, even which can be taken as which can be a little bit of like what we were talking about the other day, when somebody doesn't want to say like something mean to you, like
Uh-huh.
bless your heart, and they're
Oh,
just like
okay.
you're dumb, or like, screw you or something,
Oh,
like
I
they,
didn't
they
know
was
that.
like, oh, bless your, it's like kind of because it's a passive aggressive thing,
I
but
see.
um that's not really how I meant to characterize the southern states. They're actually so nice and so just so like sweet to you on the surface. No matter where you're going, you ask a question and people generally respond with sweetness. And
That's nice.
yeah, you feel like, oh, I'm not an outsider here. This is cool. Like,
That's cool. Yeah.
yeah, it's nice. So, yeah, traveling's good. Have you been to the West Coast? Have you been out here to California?
No, never. Yeah, so I have like no
Oh,
experience with the West Coast part of. I lived in Colorado. I guess that's as west as I've been in the U.S. For 10 months because I was doing like one of those foreign exchange student programs in high school.
mm,
So I lived in Colorado for 10 months with with family there. So that was my first experience with American culture and period. And people in Colorado were super nice. They had like that, if I had to like categorize it, it was very warm and very like yeah, it was very welcoming. And then Chicago was a whole different like again, different experience, and so is now Maryland. So those
mm.
are my like my only few experiences within the US. But yeah, I've never been to California. That would be cool.
Well, you're
I was
invited.
hoping to, and now, thank you. Maybe
Yeah,
2022.
when the time is right, man, come
Yeah.
out. And I'm way up north, but if you and Anoop take a trip out this way, you're always welcome to come up this way.
Thank you. What's the
Got
town you're in, Chico?
Chico, yeah, it's a little college town. Chico State University is here, and which is known for being maybe like one of the biggest party towns in all of the United States.
Eh.
We've got like a pretty spotty history with being super drunk as a town. Like basically, like there's a ton of bars and there's fraternities and stuff down here, and anytime there's like a fraternity and sorority type culture, it's weird. It just kind of gets kids to act awkwardly and weirdly, in that weird way. I don't think it's necessarily good. Some aspects of it, I guess, probably are, but it's much tamer these days. And especially right now. I mean, right now it's like a shell of its former self because everybody's being super chill. Even though a few places are kind of staying open and trying to party, and it's kind of dumb, but yeah, it's a great place. Really, really, like Northern California is really picturesque. This is in the valley. We're in the North Valley.
Oh, that sounds
So
beautiful.
it's hot here in the summer, but there's a great. We have some really interesting canyons that come off of the downtown. There's a long park, like you have like what is it in New York? You have Central Park, and it kind of goes into the center of town, or through Manhattan and stuff, and it's like this kind of gold mine. We have Bidwell Park here, which does a similar thing to the town. It comes all the way into town. It's just super, like tons and tons of trees, and
Oh,
there's a
that sounds
creek that runs
awesome.
through it, and they've dammed off a part of the lower part of the creek, so they've turned a section of the
Wow.
creek into like a creek pool. It's like, so when it's super hot, like there's an area that you're going to go swim in the creek, but it's like concrete on either side, and they've kind of dammed it up, and it's like a
That's
swimming
cool.
pool, that out of creek water that just passes through, and it's
That sounds
really,
beautiful.
yeah, it's really beautiful. Big trees, lots of big old oaks, and
And you guys don't get winter like harsh winters there, do you? Is it mostly mild
no,
temperature?
no, we need more water here, honestly. I mean, in the valley, in the North Valley, it's still cold here, but it's only rained a couple times since the weather's shifted. It's beautiful. It's clear and sunny out right now, but part of
Nice.
the reason, right, is that it stays this way is we pay for it with fire season, right? Like everything
Right.
burns because you don't
Were
have
you
as
affected by the recent wildfires? Was that up your area or?
yeah, I
Yeah.
was surrounded, like there was three different major fires. I mean, I didn't get close to affect me fire wise, but the smoke, the burn off makes it clouds the skies for so long that
Oh, man.
you yeah, and so thick that you basically either stay inside or you go out with an actual real like mask that's going to filter that crap out of the air, not like a just I'll put my shirt over because COVID, right?
Right.
It's like not that. It's definitely like you don't want to breathe outside. So there was about a month and a half off and on where I barely could even be outside for very much time at all this
Crazy.
year. So on top of the COVID thing, it was really rough, but
Yeah.
I didn't lose anything, thankfully. But a lot of
Yeah.
people
That's
do.
good. Man.
Yeah. The but yeah, California's cool. It burns. Um,
It burns.
it burns. You get used to it, I think. And you know, really, it's just it's such a beautiful area, though. I hope that you get to come out and maybe do a road trip. Has Anoop been out here? I assume he's been on
Yeah,
tour through.
he has. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's specifically in that area, like Northern California, but yeah, he's been all over the states just through tour and stuff.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are
Lucky.
invited. There's an extra bedroom here. You know, you got
Thank you.
extra bikes, and
Nice.
my dog will give you trouble because
Oh my gosh, she's so cute. She's adorable.
she's the best kid.
Anoop would just smother her. He won't leave her alone. He loves dogs, so he he
She
will love
will.
her.
They'll be best friends because all she wants to do is like sit in somebody's lap and get her belly rubbed and just like constantly like, you know, if you stop petting her, then she like moves.
Looks
And she's
at
like,
you.
"What are you doing? What are you doing? You get that
That's
hand.
so
You have
cute.
2 hands. You have 2 hands. You should use both of them."
Use
You
both.
know?
How old is she?
She's turning 7 officially in February.
Aw, that's
Yeah,
so cute.
and then I've had her.
You
She
had her since she
was
was a pup?
no, well, 7 months. She was 7 months, so she was a rescue. I wish I had pictures or any knowledge of her as a baby because just
Oh
you
my
know
goodness.
they look like when they're that
Oh my gosh.
kills me even thinking
You
about
said
it.
she's a pit bull bulldog mix, right?
A pit bull boxer.
Boxer mix. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
so pretty.
She's kind of dainty, like she's got some dainty qualities about her that with the boxer, but then she's kind of rough, like a bit. Pit bulls are so,
Like
so
broad chested.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's got like this interesting little mix of the two of them.
Uh-huh.
And she's just the best. I can't even really like, describe it because she's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Oh, she's
You know,
adorable.
she just keeps me in check, makes me walk every day, go for long
That's good.
walks and the whole deal. But
Nice.
yeah,
I follow her on Instagram. Every time her images pop on my feed, I'm like, this is why I use Instagram.
yeah, same.
Specifically.
I love following other dogs with her account too, because
Oh, that's
I can
awesome.
flip over to the Kimsey account and just look at dogs and cats,
That's
and animals and
awesome.
stuff. So it
That's
makes
smart.
the way to shift out of like looking at all the. I like looking at all the shreddy guitar players, but I have all the shreddy guitar players in my main feed, and I'm like, okay, I'm seeing all
Yeah,
this
like, oh my
again.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, Maru, I really appreciate you, taking the time and chatting with me. Would you like to, like, me give us any recommendations for artists to listen to, like that maybe we don't know a whole lot about? Anything that you might like to share, or friends doing projects or
Yeah.
anything?
Snooze. If anyone likes math rocky, like progressive stuff with a little bit of heaviness to it, there's a band from Chicago called Snooze.
How do you spell it?
New, huh? Snooze, like snoozing the alarm.
Snooze button? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
We play with them with my band in Chicago, and that's how I found about them. And then Anoop actually just recorded drums and mixed their latest EP. But there's like one of my favorite bands. It was just one of those bands that you never heard of, that you see live once and you're like, how are these guys like not huge? So definitely check out Snooze and Glass Animals. I feel like that's a way more popular band, so people might know about it. But still, very cool band to check out.
Cool. Yeah, I'll put it on the Glass Animals. Sounds so familiar.
I'm sure you've heard them. Yeah, they've been on like they've put their music on like TV shows and stuff like that. So I'm sure you must have heard some of their songs.
What's the main track? Is it something? Is there something sticky?
Gooey. Yeah,
Gooey.
you've heard
Oh,
Gooey.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think you've heard them.
Yeah, I've heard that song, and I've heard they have another tune or two that's kind of similar to that, or in the same vein. Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, cool. Snooze and Glass Animals.
Mm-hmm.
I'll check them out, and everybody else
Yeah.
should check them out as well.
Good.
Do you have a release date for your album, or are you kind of still working towards that?
Yeah, so I'm planning on releasing this like metal song single in February if everything goes well. I feel like always so unsure of saying release dates because I don't come up with them until I literally put it on TuneCore. I'm like, okay, I finished it. But February, I'm planning on releasing the single, and then the EP will hopefully be out probably mid to late 2021. So
Okay. So that'll be the
yeah,
teaser of what's to come, so to speak, and then we'll see something more middle to late year.
yep, yeah,
Okay. Cool. That's awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time to chat and share yourself with myself and everybody else out there.
yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored. Thank you.
Cool.